The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're so thrilled and excited to be here with you live this morning. We're going to be with you for the next 2 hours live, in fact, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective, as we always do. I particularly love Wednesdays because our lineup is so supercharged. In our first hour here, we have a segment called Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, a true expert in the field of autism, is here. She's going to be answering your questions live on the show, and there are lots of ways that you can write in to have your comments, your questions, whatever you would like to say be added to the show. In fact, Samantha is going to show those to you while I continue talking about the second half of the show and some more things about our show. In our second hour today, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. My good friend Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson joins me for that hour. And it is amazing that the guests that we're going to be bringing to you today. We have one of the contributors to the book, What Every Autistic Girl Wants Her Parents to Know. It's an amazing opportunity to have a conversation with somebody about what are the things that we aren't looking at. Truly, truly wonderful. And then later in that hour, we're going to have a mom and her son who is on the autism spectrum. He is an amazing painter and about to have his first show that's happening this Saturday here in Los Angeles to show his artwork. And so we're going to talk with him and with his mom about what it's taken for them to get here and to this place where, wait till you see the paintings that this young man does. Truly, truly remarkable. I also want to remind you, Samantha just showed you a bunch of ways you can connect with us, but don't ever forget that our homepage is still autism-live.com. And when you go there, lots of things to do. You can push the little button there that has a triangle on it, and you can be watching the live show, or it will show you the most recently recorded live show. If you look to the side of the computer screen, there's a series of white boxes, and if you put your cursor in the one that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter. That's a great way to talk to us, especially if you want to remain completely anonymous. We have no idea who you are. It's completely free. There is no login, no username, no password, no membership fees. It's just completely anonymous and free. We can't possibly get to all the questions that are asked, but we love it when people are persistent, and I try to pick through and see to get a nice mix and have everybody have an opportunity to have their questions answered. Thank you for being with us. We're so excited. It's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're so lucky because we have with us right now Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She is a true expert in the field of autism, having worked in this field for more than 30 years. She's a remarkable human being and a service to our community because really, beyond being an expert, and I believe the preeminent expert in autism, she's also a visionary. She is so kind and compassionate and interested in what our community needs and takes a look at all the things that are happening and helps us to be prepared because changes have come and changes are still coming. So we salute you and thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Always pleasant to be here.
here.
Well, it's our thrill always. We do like to always remind everybody, though, that there is no expert in any field that could give individual specific advice in this format. So what that means is that you'll write in your question and have an opportunity to hear from Dr. Grant-Boucher about some ideas that she has on that general topic. And what it will do is help you. We've heard from, in fact, we have a comment today from a viewer about some advice that you gave that proved to be very helpful. We hear all the time because you help us to think of things in a different way, to be able to advocate for ourselves, to know what question to ask when we go see an expert who actually has eyes on the situation, which is what's needed for an individual specific advice.
That's great.
So, so just know that that's what this hour is about, but it's just so enlightening always. In fact, maybe we should jump right to that. The parent who wrote in said, "Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Thank you for the headset recommendation for working on Thunder. It came in handy when our smoke alarm went off in the middle of the night. Instead of freaking out, he helped himself to his headset and walked out of the room to find what was going on.
Oh my gosh.
And even offered to help turn off that false alarm.
I love
The
it.
answers you give to all the questions are so helpful, and thank you so much, ladies." And that comes from our fabulous, we refer to her as the haircut mom.
That's awesome.
We have, since we want to preserve people's anonymity always, we have some viewers that we have pet names for. We have the haircut mom, we have strawberry mom, we West Virginia mom.
Absolutely.
They're all good friends of ours at this point. So in any case, I'm thrilled that that's what happened, and
That's
just
so cool.
another example
I
of
just
how you
love
shed
it.
light on things
No,
that are
that's
so
so
helpful.
great. It's just remembering that our kids actually have a really hard time with sensory input. That's really important. But how awesome. What a great young man.
Yes, what an amazing thing. And also, can I just say that sometimes as a parent, it just seems that the problem that your child is having, especially when it's sensory in nature, it seems so unknown, so foreign, so overwhelming, and you think, this is just how it is, and what will become of all of us.
Yeah.
And you give us something to do that it's like, oh, well, gosh, that works.
Right. Well, because, like a lot of times I think to myself, like, how does it feel to actually experience autism? And it's funny, a couple of days ago, my daughter, this is the first year that any of my children are in a public school. So I didn't know that they do this in public school, but I just found out that they have this thing called every 15 minutes. Do you know about every 15 minutes?
No.
Okay, so it's for 11th and 12th graders only. And they do a full-on replication of what happens every 15 minutes is someone dies from a drunk driving accident. So they do a full-on replication that is pre-planned with a bunch of kids. So a certain of their classmates are planned to be the victims. And what they do is every 15 minutes during the morning hours, they will announce that so-and-so died in a car accident. And it goes on until there's like 20 of them or something.
Wow.
And then in the afternoon, they will do a full reenactment. The police are involved, the hospitals are involved, so the police will actually bring out, I couldn't believe it, Charlie taped all this, they bring out cars that are smashed, and there's like the students with paint and everything are hanging out of it. It's like, it's really brutal, right? And police comes, takes the driver, does a test, then takes the driver, then ambulance comes and takes the others, and like, it's and they actually have a funeral. The parents of the kids come and speak at the funeral. Like, it's something you will never forget. Like, when she was showing it to me, I was thinking to myself, first of all, I'll never forget this. It's great for 11th and 12th year olds, because the 12th graders, because they're just driving. They're just starting to drive.
And to bring that reality to them.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, and unfortunately I just found out about this, but there's not enough time this year. But, every year for Autism Awareness Month, April, we do a bunch of stuff. This year, we've partnered up with Chuck E. Cheese, of course, and they're doing sensory-friendly Chuck E. Cheese days, which is great. And then we're also doing training for first responders, and then we're going to schools and doing anti-bullying training. And along that line, because to me, that's a really, really important one. It happens a lot. It's not even intentional bullying. I think it's just that other kids really, and I see this with all my kids' friends and all the kids that have grown up in my house, they just don't know enough about autism, so
Yeah.
they don't know how to approach it, you
Yeah.
know. So when they see someone who's autistic, they will avoid,
Yeah.
right? And that's the worst. I mean, that's the last thing we want for our
Right.
kids. We want them to engage, right? So I was thinking of this concept and thinking, how can we do it for autism? What
Yeah.
can we do for people to experience what autism is, really? And the first thing that came to mind was sensory input, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing you can really, I mean, honestly, if you take anyone, it's funny because this also happens to individuals with schizophrenia, but you take anyone and you give them really high sounds that are very disturbing, and you also give them skewed vision, like let's say, prism glasses or something, and you tell them they're not allowed to talk for the course of a day or an hour,
Yeah.
they will experience a very, very small portion of what our kids go through every single day. And with that, it'll help them understand why our kids behave the way they do, why it's so hard for our kids to interact socially.
Yeah.
And I was, I feel like we need to do something to help other kids understand what autism, the experience of autism is like.
Yeah.
So that first of all, they become more comfortable, familiar with it.
Yeah.
And also so they can help. Like, this young man, great. I had a child who in school every hour, he would be terrified because he knew the bell is coming at the end of the hour. Like, imagine if the school was just smart enough to, allow him to have headphones,
Exactly. A small little tweak of a thing.
Something.
That unless I think about Temple Grandin when the whole Fukushima nuclear power plant happened. And Temple said, you know what, if a person with autism had been in charge of building, that would never have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a different view of things and people can't see things the way we do. Sometimes that's of a benefit to them.
Absolutely.
Other times it is not.
That's right.
And it really is incumbent upon those of us who don't have autism to try to take a perspective of somebody who is on the spectrum. But I think you're really onto something. I know as a mom, all I wanted when Jem was little was to crawl inside his head and see the world he did. If I could just do that, I would have paid whatever there was. There wasn't much, but I would have paid all the shekels that I had because I wanted to see it from his point of view.
Right.
I love that he can tell me now some things.
Right.
If I figure out the right question to ask, it's so freeing. So to be able to experience that. They also have now men can experience labor. They have a whole suit that they can put on.
Right.
Because I think
that's so
you
cool.
can be compassionate, but until you have felt it,
Yeah.
then you go, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a wonderful
I
thing.
just hope that if we do something like this next year, like experiencing autism, something like that it doesn't come across as offensive to individuals who are actually affected by autism, you know, because there's no way you can replicate it, but you could, just the sensory aspects of it, you might be able to replicate, and the fact that the vast majority of the individuals have a difficult time expressive communication. So, I mean, those are the only things you can really replicate. You can't really have someone experience what it's like, but it's something close to it.
Love it. Absolutely love it. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we are going to be back with more Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages. Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Now, you know that you can write in your questions, and I love to pick questions from you, and we're going to do more of your questions in just a minute. But I had a question for Dr. Grant-Pichet this morning. Like all of you, I've been watching the news in the last 24 hours and have seen the story of the 13-year-old in the Dallas-Fort Worth airport who he had left his backpack in his knapsack, and I think that's part of the reason why it was, that's what I mean, yes, computer. Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason why he was singled out. But it escalated into him having to have a full pat-down search. 13 years old, has sensory processing disorder. Mom was understandably very upset, videotaped it. It's all over the news right now. And even this morning on the Today Show, they were interviewing the young man, and he was saying how confusing it was to him that he's always been told, you know, you don't let people touch you there. And here you are standing in a public place and having this happen. And, you know, I will say we need our airports to be safe. I mean, of course, that's a priority. And I'm sure that that official was not loving that he was having to do this in front of the world either. But it really brought home for me as the mother of a young man. I've been in that airport before and had them want to send my very tall 13-year-old, he was 12 then, through the one
body scanner.
The body scanner that
which
none
is
of us
pure X-ray.
Yeah, which none of us particularly would choose for our kids, right? And I kind of was balking at it and saying, you know, I don't want him to do that. Can't we do something else? And this woman got in my face and said, "Oh, we'll give him a pat down, you know, and it'll be the most thorough pat down." And I went, "No, send him through the scanner." But it concerns me. And this morning, I said to Jem, I want you to watch this. I want you to see this videotape. This young man didn't do anything wrong, but this could happen. I would certainly advocate for it not to happen to you. And I drove to work thinking, I really wanted to ask you about this because I think we need to prepare our kids for these kinds of things. And how do you prepare them?
I mean, it's easy. The how is not as, it's very easy if we could predict all the possible situations that could happen. And that's the problem. The problem, I think, is not that, you know, yes, we have to prepare our kids and perhaps we just tell them that there will be situations where this type of thing happens. But really, if you really want to prepare them, then you have to kind of make assumptions about various environments and procedures that could potentially go this way. Okay. You know, the problem here is there's not, I mean, and I'm certain this is the issue, there's not enough training provided to our TSA folks, right? So they're told a certain set of black and white rules. There's no question about it. I mean, sometimes I see this even at CARD now that we're at like 3,000 employees. You make a rule that's intended to safeguard our clients or something like that, and someone goes over and beyond and like just really doesn't look at the gray and is very black and white about it and says, no, we never can do this, you know, and it's like, no, actually in this particular situation, you can make an exception. You know, an example is, for instance, we tell our folks you can't use your cell phones, right? Because we don't want our employees using their personal cell phones. And there was a situation where a parent had a child with seizures and had or epilepsy or diabetes, I don't remember, it was some medical issue, and had sent the child to our center and then wanted a phone number to be able to call to remind them of something. And nobody would give her the cell phone number, you know, and I was thinking, like, you guys, this is an exception, you know? And the same thing is happening here, I think, is that perhaps, and of course, depending on the functional level of the child, like the parent doesn't want to say, oh, he has autism maybe, or something to single him out even more. And even if the parent did say that, I'm not sure the TSA agents would even know that there's a sensory component. That maybe it's not comfortable for this individual for us to pat him down like this. And
she did say that she was trying to tell them that. But when you're in that moment, I know when you're in that moment, I think they've been trained to, you know, people say everything under the sun, so they're not really listening.
Well, okay, so this takes me for a moment, I mean, and this is my personal opinion, because I also often observe TSA and how they treat people, and I don't like it. So, My personal opinion is that when you put on, there's this very famous study in psychology called the Zimbardo Prison Study. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
Zimbardo Prison Study was done at Stanford. It's a very cool study, actually, where he basically took a bunch of friends. They were friends in high school, like they were in college, and they were friends. And he just randomly split them in half, and half of the people became prisoners and half of the people became guards. And this the study, it was an actual study, and it was in the locker area down underneath of Stanford University. And it became the relationship, the way the guards treated the prisoners, their own friends, over the course of, I think, 2.5 weeks, became so bad that they had to discontinue the study. It was supposed to go for 6 weeks. They literally had to discontinue because they were becoming extremely abusive.
Yeah.
Movies have been made about this experiment.
Yeah, it's the thing that proves that absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Exactly. And just a uniform has a huge amount. There's a ton of studies showing the effects of just wearing a uniform. And it has such an incredible dominant effect. And the TSA are, generally speaking, I don't think there's a requirement for any kind of higher education to become TSA. And you are in a uniform, and you absolutely have a lot of power at that moment because of the fact that your job is to ensure the safety. So there's not a whole lot of information that goes into like how you should treat people with different disabilities, or the elderly, or young or mothers traveling with 5 kids, or none of that is ever said to anyone, and these are not individuals who will figure that out. So often you see this kind of behavior just because there are some TSA folks that are just rude. They're plain rude, and it's because of that uniform. I'm pretty sure if you sat next to that individual in church on the weekend, they would be a different person.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? In that uniform, they become highly assertive and aggressive. So how do you prepare your child? I mean, the same way, I think that's why we're focused on teaching. In fact, thank you for bringing this up, because first responders, TSA should be in that group.
I was just going to say, I would be happy to reach out and see if I can find somebody and say, let's work on some training. And this would be a good
that
way
would
to
be
do
amazing. We'd love to do that for the TSA all over the country, because honestly, if we could just give them some feedback on how to handle this, I'm sure that they would respond to it. I just don't think they know. And for our kids, I think really the only lesson that we can give them in preparation is just to be a little bit cautious, to exercise caution around individuals with uniforms.
Okay.
While they are intended to protect us, they are also people who have a certain level of power.
Yes.
I mean, we all, let's face it, it's like we all have a certain anxiety when a cop comes up to you or something like that. So, I think we need to just teach our kids to really pay very close attention to the individual in a uniform and see what they're saying.
Yeah. And even, just as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about the fact that when you first go up to TSA and you have to have your ID and everything out, and they ask you a question.
Yeah.
That's like a screening question. And over the years, I've said to Jem, you have to have it together.
Right.
You have to have it together. Now he's old enough that he holds his own ID.
Right.
And the first thing I say is, this is my son. He's whatever his age is, because he's always looked much older.
Right.
And I don't say anything else and look to see how he does. When Jem was littler, when they would ask him a question, sometimes it would take him a while to answer and he wouldn't necessarily make eye contact. And then I would get tense thinking, which is not, all of that reading to that TSA agent is not the best thing. Now I always remind him as we're going up, make sure you follow all the rules, make sure you make eye contact, make sure you answer them when they talk to you. And
I think a parent, if you have a child who has a little, is more disabled because of autism, you should tell the TSA agent.
I agree.
I really do think that it's important to tell them, because aside from the fact that I never really want to label our kids, I just do think that it produces a little bit more caution on their part in terms of how they deal with your child.
Absolutely. I've even heard of one parent who called the airport ahead of time and said, I'm coming. My child has autism, and so we're going to be coming through the TSA. And what happened was that they made sure that there was a supervisor there at that time.
That's great.
I think that is a great in that circumstance. I don't think you're always going to be met with great stuff.
Here's the other thing. You can absolutely call the airline and request assistance getting through.
Oh,
so that you definitely can do, and that's their job. They will provide it, just like they provide a wheelchair.
Okay.
They will provide an individual who will go with you and will actually walk through and will then assist and kind of make sure nobody treats you poorly.
Okay, great, good to know. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with more of your questions, I promise. Stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of this is with all the accomplishments over the last 20 years. I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago, and there were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, and at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, for me, it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads? It is just, and I feel like, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grandpichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grandpichet.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. I want to go to a question that somebody emailed me, and that's one of the other ways you can get a hold of us is you can email. If you've got a longer question in particular, you can email me. My email is s.penrod, Penrod, at autism-live.com, and that's S as in Sam, .penrod. I know some of you are listening on iTunes, and it's hard to hear what I'm S as in Sam. All right, they wrote in and said, "Hi Shannon, I'm a mom of 2 girls, one with autism. She's 3.5 years old. We're living in Australia. My question is, recently I came to know about ABA. I attended an ABA program 3 days through ABIA Center in Melbourne."
ABAI.
Do you think that's what it is, ABAI?
Well, ABAI,
The the international program.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would
Keep
assume
going.
ABAI, but it says ABIA. I don't know.
Yeah.
In Melbourne. Now we have found a program supervisor. Unfortunately, it's hard to find a private therapist. My program supervisor told me that the therapist and I do the program together. Can a parent alone do the ABA program intensively for 25 to 30 hours? Is it as effective as a therapist when they do it? At present, I'm doing 15 to 20 hours of therapy with my daughter.
Wow.
I have a supervisor who writes programs for me. Can I apply for Skills for Autism for more help? I'm a mom who could give 100% for my daughter, just struggling to get a good, intensive, structured ABA program. Please help me, she writes. And I'm thrilled that you wrote in because I think that Dr. Grampiche has some great information for you.
Okay.
No pressure.
No, not at all. It's just that, like, God bless you for doing so much with such limited resources. I rereading it as you read it. So I think what has happened for this mom is that this program in Melbourne has given her 3 days of training, and then you're on your own, is what I think, because she says I attended the ABA program 3 days through ABA Center in Apple, and then found a supervisor. So I think and I don't even know who your supervisor is or if they're board certified, most likely not. A lot of people in New Zealand haven't quite caught up yet. But what I would do, in Australia, this is Melbourne, okay. So what I would do is a couple of different things. First of all, the people I know are not in Melbourne, but what I would do is I would use all the solutions that we have, which I'm going to tell you, Skills and IBT, and then I would definitely hire some family members, neighbors, high school kids, people who just want to help, because I don't think you'll last too long if you're the sole therapist. I'm trying to think. I don't think I could do myself 20 hours a week of therapy with any of my kids. I don't think I would last. It's a lot. So I don't recommend it. I think you need to get other people involved. And what you do is you get a team of people together, and they could be they could be kids, they could be high school kids, and as long as they're serious people and they want to help. And what you do is you will train them. The way to train them, I don't know what training this organization offers, and if you can put them through that might be helpful as well. But our training is on Institute for Behavioral Training, IBT, and the URL for it is ibehavioraltraining.com. ibehavioral, spelled the American way, not the Australian way, .com. And you will, on there, you'll see professional training, teacher training, parent training, and I would suggest that they go through the therapist track. In fact, if they're interested, they could take the board certified autism technician course series. It isn't a lot, it's 40 hours total, and it'll prepare them. And I recommend you do the same. I recommend that you definitely go through the BCAT package, Board Certified Autism Technician package, and that'll teach you more. And if you go to the parent tab or on IBT, there's a lot of very, very useful information there as well. So I think that these modules are very inexpensive, they're short, they're not huge, and we're not talking about a massive amount of, in a week you'll get a lot of good training. So after that, and that could be ongoing, by the way, you don't need to do that first. You should do like the basic package first, but then you can continue to increase your knowledge as you treat your child, because you should, and that's going to be very helpful. Then the question becomes, what do you need to teach your child? You don't need a supervisor. The supervisor is the one that basically tells you the following, and I can tell you how to get that information. So if you're paying that supervisor, I'd rather you use that money to pay a therapist or a bunch of therapists. So what you do is you'll need to know exactly what your child's skills and deficits are, and you'll need to know how to improve on those. So that's skills. And yes, you should definitely go on the Skills website, skillsforautism.com, And there you will first answer a bunch of questions about your child. So you sign up and you'll answer a whole bunch of questions. And after you answer all those questions of what your child can and cannot do, all the things that you said your child cannot do will go to kind of a big supermarket of lessons, of areas that need to be worked on. And then it'll give you options by domain, and you'll select and you'll say, okay, I'm gonna do why 30 hours? She's 3 years old. If you can get a team of people together, if you can get a bunch of therapists or neighborhood kids or whatever, or neighbors or friends or family members to help, I would put together a 40-hour program at least. And I would say, okay, her entire day is going to be packed with therapy. And you would make these sessions go about 2 hours each. So you'll do, let's say, 9 to 11, and then give her a break for half an hour, and then do like 11:30 till 1:30, during which time you can also work on feeding skills, teaching her to eat by herself politely and so on. And then you'll do another little break, and then you'll do another 2-hour session. And realistically, you want to do at least 3 2-hour sessions a day, if you can, or 2, and then go through the weekend as well. You really want to pack about 40 hours if you can into her life. And don't worry about academics right now. I wouldn't. I would use this young age to teach her all the skills she needs other than academics. So I would not be putting my child in school. I would be really just focusing on teaching. Now, if you can't fill her time, then that's when you want to put her in school, because we don't want the children to be unoccupied. You want her to be occupied. And then what you do is you just start selecting from these domains. And essentially, when your child is 3, you're going to be focusing on the domain on the curriculum area of language, social, play, and adaptive. And depending on how much of her motor deficits are significant, usually our kids don't have a ton of motor deficits. So if you can ignore the motor curriculum, that will save you some time. On the other hand, if you see that your child has some visual issues or some sensory issues, then do look at the motor curriculum, because there's a sensory motor is in there as well. So that's how I would focus my time. And then you just go through and you select, like, let's say, if you're doing 40 hours and you're on 5 areas, I would pick like 3, 4 language lessons, maybe 1 social, 1 play, maybe 1 or 2 adaptive. Obviously, she's 3. I don't know if she's potty trained. You need to make sure she gets potty training, toilet training. That's very important. So you put all of that together to make a nice mix. And then what we can actually show you, like if you can get someone from Skills to call and show you how to set up a lesson plan, like how the lesson plans work and how you write them, and we can show you how to take data. It's actually, there's a module on IBT about data collection and how you can take data with forms and everything. It'll help you get started. Another really good resource is our book that we published a couple of years ago, Evidence-Based Treatments for Autism, the CARD model. I would read that. With all of that together, in other words, instead of spending your time really doing the actual therapy, I would spend the time on teaching yourself a little bit more about ABA and how to design programs, so that you become the program supervisor, the manager of the program, and you tell the therapists what they need to do. If you get to a future point where it's just very difficult to know the next steps, there are other things. We have a telehealth process here at the CARD. You can definitely hire one of our supervisors, and they will get on like FaceTime with you, and they will actually see how you work with the child, with your child. They'll see how the therapists work with the child, will give feedback, will train more, will tell you how to do programming, what lessons to select, how to teach specific skills, how to move on. But Skills will tell you everything you need completely from age 3 all the way up to age 8, and hopefully during the course of 3 or 4 years you're done, like, and your child's mastering things, and then ultimately you mainstream into school, and then the program stops, or fades out because the child is successful. So it sounds very overwhelming, but it is quite doable. And I would just suggest that you put a lot of your time more into learning rather than actually doing the stuff. If you can, try to hire other people. Now, if financial is a big problem, then write back and we'll help you trouble solve that and figure out some other solutions.
Yeah, and I just want to say that you wouldn't be the first parent to do this and do this successfully.
Right.
One of the things that we show from time to time here on the show is the story of Maddie, the little girl who was diagnosed with autism, and her parents were living in a rural place where they couldn't get access to anything. And so they were trying to come up with an ABA program on their own. It was right as Skills was coming out. They took the Skills program. They got the people from their church to volunteer their time. They trained all of them and using what is now the IBT training. And they were able to intensively intervene with their daughter, and she needs no additional services now. And other families have done it too. It's just we have video of Maddie, and that's why I bring her up.
Definitely.
And they've been an amazing, outspoken family of saying this is possible.
Right.
I love the fact that years ago there was only one way to do this, right? And it was in the home, and you either had to have a funding source or you had to be independently wealthy.
Right.
And this is when I say every day that Dr. Grant-Pichet is a visionary. This is one of the many things that I'm talking about was that you said, and I was in the room when you once said this isn't okay. We have the tools. We need to make sure that people have access to the tools.
Definitely.
And you made that happen. You took, and people told you not to and said, this is your secret sauce, hide it. And you said not happening. And made it so that it is possible for everyone to be able to have access.
Right.
Will it be harder? Yes. If you don't have a team of people, and especially I appreciate you saying, because I know we have had some parents that are doing 20 to 30 hours themselves without other support, and they would tell you it's really hard, and that they really don't get as far in terms of generalization because it's just them. You just by virtue of how generalization works, you have to have another person to be doing it with a child for them to really learn it.
Yes.
But we as parents come with baggage every time we come to our child, because we also have to get them up, and we have to get them cleaned, and we have to feed them, and so you
have to also be the primary reinforcer.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, the role of mom is also to pick the child up when they're hurt, to cuddle, to help them sleep, to hold them when they have a tummy ache. You have to be the calming, soothing mother. So that is a little contrary to being also the person that makes the most demands.
Right.
So it just makes it very hard for parents.
And I think what worked best for me and what works great for so many parents is the idea that we don't abdicate and go, oh no, I don't have anything to do with this. But when your team sets something in motion and you follow through on it, man, that will get you the farthest, I believe. So
absolutely,
think outside the box. Sometimes there are university students who need a job and they want experience and will work for free or for less. Sometimes we've had a family that had their local Kiwanis organization sponsor the child and learn and donate their time. We've had sororities who said we want to pick a certain child and train all the sororities to be able to do this. So even if you can't afford to hire a therapist, there are people who have found the way around it. I just want to point that out.
Absolutely.
And then write back to us and let us know what happens, okay? All right, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to be back with more questions after these messages.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids, what are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she's answering your questions in real time. That was just the fabulous Brianna Yeedy that we saw. What a little light she is. Okay, I want to move to a question from a grandparent. I just particularly love it when grandparents write in. You know, I love when Suzanne Wright was, I don't remember which talk show, it was probably Larry King that she was on shortly after my son was diagnosed with autism, and she looked at the camera and she said, look, I see firsthand with my daughter that the parents are so overwhelmed with all the things they have to do. As a grandparent, you know, get up off the couch and do something for your family. And I was just doing a parent talk last week, and there was a grandparent that was there, which is so on it. She was there with the mom and the dad, and you know, and she was asking more questions than anybody else. She was like, I want to know about this and I want to know about that. Love it when a grandparent is involved. It makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
So this grandparent says, my soon-to-be 4-year-old grandson will be moving from Santa Barbara to Newport Beach. He is presently receiving service from, did you say that, Kegel?
Kegel, yeah.
Kegel Autism Center at UCSB, in-home and preschool, private typical, private too, I think that's private typical in school, but I'm not sure. In school, the aide is with him a portion of the day. He is also receiving outside speech therapy. We are lost in trying to find the right therapy in Orange County. Their preference is to keep him in this school environment with an aide since he is doing well and making progress, and to have at-home therapy. And they are also to group therapy for certain aspects of his treatment. Do you have any recommendations? And thank you. We know a lot of people in Orange County that are doing amazing work.
We have a lot of offices in Orange County. I don't even know how many anymore. I would just recommend that you schedule for an intake. You don't have to, obviously, once you've had the intake, once the family has had the intake evaluation, they don't have to continue with CARD, but I would really recommend that you do an actual intake. Newport Beach. So you would be very close to our San Juan Capistrano office, and I would really recommend that you set up a time. All you have to do is call our number on our website. Actually, if you go on our website, there's a way to get into the admissions process right on the website. So there's what's called a parent portal, and you go in there, put a bunch of information, we call and set up a time for the parents to bring the child in, and we will check on insurance benefits and so on and so forth. Now the Kegels, I'm very familiar with the Kegels. They are good friends of mine, and they do pivotal response, which is a type of ABA, and there are some similarities to sort of the type of ABA that we do at CARD. It won't be anything that'll conflict. And if your child is doing really well, then I'm pretty sure that the supervisor who sees the child in Orange County would say the same thing, which I'm saying, which is, yes, we definitely wanted to keep the child in school with a shadow. And the way that works is that we end up getting school district funding, or the school district just places a shadow with the child in their district, while you also get insurance funding to work on skills at home and at our centers. The centers provide a lot more social environment for the children so they can socialize with other children. And so, yeah, you're on the right track. I think you just need to meet with a professional. Go on our website, centerforautism.com, and look at all the centers we have. Depending on where they live in Newport Beach, I mean, our Irvine Center could be closer, I don't know, but we're all over Orange County. We have so many centers I can't even name. So I would really recommend you start with what we call an intake, which is the first evaluation. And also, as part of being a patient at CARD or as doing an intake at CARD, we'll do a full skills review. So the parents will answer questions on skills and will get a profile, which you can take and use wherever you go. You don't have to be with us, but it's a profile of all the child's skills and deficits as well. So just get in touch and we'll definitely be able to help.
Yeah, I highly recommend that you look at the CARD program.
I mean, Bob Cagle actually went to the same UCLA school program that I did. And Lynn Cagle, who's a speech path, is a good friend, and she does a lot of good work with the kids. And I know that their program is not that much different. So
there you go. Wonderful. So definitely check that out. I wanted to take a question that came in on the live feature, and I want to thank all of you who are watching on Facebook Live. Diana writes in and says, how do I help my child with changes? I have problems lately when we go outside and we have to come back in the house. He gets really upset. I have to carry him home. He's only 2 and nonverbal. I do want to point out that there is an episode of the A Word that deals exactly with this, and he's just a little bit older. He might be just 3 when this happens, and it might be worthwhile to check that out on the A Word, not the British television show, the documentary. We've got a playlist for it on our YouTube channel, but perhaps
cool, that's great. So, there's a lot of different things you can do in this circumstance. You have to ask yourself why this is. Sometimes parents will say he has issues with transitions. It's not really issues with transitions. It's simply transitioning from a preferred activity to a non-preferred activity. Most of the time, that's what the case is. And so it's a very, very natural process for kids to have a hard time. And, if your child did not have a diagnosis, and they had a tantrum outside and would refuse to come inside, you'd probably pick the child up and bring him in and then get him engaged in something else. And you're going to do pretty much the same thing here. Essentially, the idea is the child, by tantruming or by, showing that he's upset, all he's doing is he's non-vocally expressing to you, I don't want to go in, I really want to stay outside and play longer. And I think there's several things you could do. One is you can help the child. I mean, he's 2 years old. This might not help because he's so young, but sometimes it helps. You could try it. With some of our kids, what we do is we'll set a timer. We'll tell them when the timer is finished, we're going in. So it for kids who have a hard time with transitions, that gives them a head start. For kids who really don't have issues with transitions but would prefer to stay in the more fun activity, this doesn't help. It actually makes it worse because then the child gets all nervous that they're about to give up their playtime. So realistically, the best way to fix this is just to make sure the environment inside provides some reinforcer so that the child is more willing to come inside and get the reinforcer. So what you do is you say it's time to go in. Don't even worry about tantrum or whatever it is. Literally pick your child up, go inside. When you're inside, give the child some sort of significant reinforcer, a lollipop, a snack, something that he gets the minute he comes inside. We're not talking comes inside and walks to the kitchen. We're talking the minute he's inside the door. So, and then let's say you give him a lollipop. As he's opening the lollipop, you distract him with some other activity and we're good and he'll move on. 2-year-olds, it's very, very easy to distract them and to keep things moving along. Do not wait for him to set the tone of the time frame. Don't wait for him to start freaking out. Just usher him along, give him a little thing, get him busy with the next thing and the next thing, and before you know it, it's over. That's all it is. It's just a preference for being outside, I think. And if that doesn't apply, let me know what I'm missing because I don't have all the facts here.
Yeah, I always say to parents who are new to the whole ABA thing about, imagine if you didn't have the words to convey or people weren't listening to you or you didn't know. And I'm sure you've heard the story before. It's Art Wilkie's favorite story about me. Just like 4 years ago, I was in a shoe store with my husband and my son, and I have a very low frustration threshold. I'm not very good at being frustrated for long periods of time. I will do anything to not be frustrated. And I was trying to get them to listen to me, and they were so tuned out. And, you know, Jem was playing with a shoehorn, and my husband was over looking at a pair. And I was like, guys, you know, I got to be someplace, and we got to, you know, can you help me, honey? Jem, come over. Nobody wanted to hear from me. So I just laid down on the floor in the middle of the store.
No
I
way.
just laid down in the middle of the floor, and my husband was like, what's going on? I was like, nobody's listening to me, so I'm not doing anything anymore. I just threw a hissy fit.
That's
and
hilarious.
and Art Wilkie loves this story. And I just laid, and I was like, no, I'm done. I'm on strike. And my husband was like, get up off the floor. You're embarrassing me. You're like, don't. And it's funny, every time we go into that store now, because buying shoes is a really, you know, there's a lot of work involved in, you know, moving parts and stuff. We go into that store, and I go, how are we going to do today? And everybody's like, oh, it's going to be fine. Years later, my husband's
God,
like,
that's so
just promise me
funny.
you're not going to lay on the floor. You know,
That's so
but
funny.
I just was like, no, nobody's listening to me, so I'm going to make sure you listen to me.
Yes.
And I think, you know, 2-year-olds are particularly good at that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very typical thing. How else am I going to express to you that I don't want to go in?
You're not listening to the other ways I tried.
Right.
I'll try new ways.
And you know, it's actually, instead of like, you know, you always want to analyze what circumstances leads to the child throwing a tantrum. Like in my mind, if your 2-year-old has a significant preference for the outside versus the inside right now, what it tells me is that this is a child who might be a little bit on the hyperactive side, and they enjoy the ability to run around and be active outside as opposed to inside. That's the more important factor. Yeah. That's the thing you should think about, because now you want to make sure that during the course of your child's day, there's adequate physical activity to tire him out, and then there's adequate time to, you know, so that he can sit down and focus on things. Those are the types of things. Otherwise, don't worry about the fact that he doesn't want to come in. Which 2-year-old wants to actually go inside, you know?
Right. It's fun. Outside is more fun. Somebody wrote into us and said, hi, I was curious and how I could work there. I'm very interested in working with children with autism, and I have heard great things about this company. I'm sure you have, because there's lots of great things to say.
Yeah, so I think on our website there's also an employment page, and you could just get on there, and there's contact information. Otherwise, just call our 800 number and ask to go to the recruiters, and recruiting will take you in. We're hiring, I think, 70 new therapists a week.
There you go.
Which is crazy.
And what a great career. What a great way to make a difference.
It's very nice. I mean, you come in as a therapist, we train you right off the bat for either a registered behavior technician or a board certified autism technician, one or the other. And those are both awesome. And you start with getting a certificate. And once you have the certificate, now your behavior therapist level, BT level, increases. So you will immediately get an increase in wages as well, because now you're like a BT2. And then if you become an expert in one area, which will teach you these things over the course of all the continuing ed you do here, you become like a BT3 or BT4. And ultimately, if you become a liaison, which is or a trainer, people who train other people, you're 4 or 5. And then during the course of that period of time, you're getting increases all the time. And also you are now learning more and more, so many people then become interested in actually developing a professional career in this field. And then they go on, let's say if you start with high school, when you finish high school and come here, over the first 4 years, we are helping you move up BT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And and we adjust your schedule according to your school schedule. There's a lot of flexibility here. And if you do well, then of course after you get your bachelor's, you have the ability to go and get what's called a board certified associate behavior analyst, BCABA credential. And that then allows you to become an assistant or an associate supervisor here at CARD, which then gives you a ton more growth in your career. And then beyond that, even further, you can become a supervisor and get your master's. We actually help with a lot of people's education. We support education, so we pay for the degrees and credentials that our individuals get. And so, yeah, we'd love to have you.
We only have a minute left, and as much as I would love to throw a question at you and keep you 5 minutes over, I know I really can't today, that you got a house full of people that you really have to get back to.
Thank you, yes.
But I want to take this opportunity to thank you. I know in particular there was somebody who wrote in with a phone number. I'm going to call you after the show, so know that. Got your message. And for everybody else who wrote in questions, I apologize that we can't get to all of them, but I really want to thank you for all that you do and for being here.
Thank you.
When next we meet you, next week we're going to be in April.
I know, my
it's
God.
amazing April awareness, action, and acceptance month. Whichever one you happen to celebrate or commemorate, you know, because I know for different people, April is different things.
Absolutely.
And I participate in all three of those things, and whatever you're going to participate in, I hope you'll be here with Dr. Grant Pichet as we move forward into April. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will join me. We've got some amazing guests for you. First, we have a woman who was one of the contributors to the book, What Every Autistic Girl Wants Her Parents to Know. Amazing, amazing opportunity to talk to her. And then a little bit later on in the program, we have a mom and son. The son is on the autism spectrum and a beautiful, beautiful artist. We're going to be talking with him and his mom about his first show, which is happening this weekend. You're going to have an opportunity to meet them. So all of that and in the news coming up after these messages. Stick with us.
You say T. Oh, there's Miss Jessica. Hello. Hi. Say hi.
Ready?
See? What is it? What's that? Giraffe. He's getting really good at that. What's that guy? Who's this guy?
We have this one program called MVI, which is non-vocal imitation, so he basically has to imitate whatever we do. So we were working on object manipulation, and then Tuesday I tried doing more gross motor things like clapping hands or standing or jumping, and he was able to imitate all of those.
Ready? Do this. Yay! Very good. Okay, here you go. Who's hiding now? Me? Do this. Good job. Okay, here you go. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, ready? Do this. Yay! All right. Here you go, Rockstar. Oh, that's so cool. Alright, you ready? Do this. Good job. Very good.
So that was actually a fine motor action with a touch nose.
Oh, yeah. How did that happen? You want more? You want more of this? More? Okay. Good asking. We'll do a couple more actions, okay? Do this. Good job. Do this. Good job. Do this. Good try. Over here. Can you try? Do this. There you go. All right. Here you go.
He's been doing a lot more on his own, even just when I attempt him by just holding the object, not necessarily asking him to imitate more. Cat, that's right. He does do it on his own now, which is really cool. Good asking, buddy. Ouch. Line it up.
That one's up. Oh, there you go. See? How many up do you want to go?
You touch the block? God, what is it? Block. Good job.
Sorry, I'm just curious.
This is cool. Okay. I'm interested too. Touch shoes. Where's the shoes? Let's go try. Okay. Let's see. You touch crab. Where's the crab? Can you touch it with your finger though? Thank you. Did you see that? What is it?
Crab. See, crab. That was so funny. I didn't specify, huh? Touch block. Good job. What is it? What is this? Block. This is his receptive labels, so what I just did basically. And our supervisor had written down things that's in his environment that he might not know or that he might know the labels to, or if he's just seen it or heard the label for it, not necessarily know how to say it per se. And I just went through block, guitar, bear, plane, cat with him, and so he actually knows all of them. So I'm actually going to go through his environment just to see other things like shoes. He actually knew almost everything on here except fork, I think. Yeah. So that's actually really impressive. You amaze me every day, kiddo.
We're taking a walk. We just finished dinner, getting ready to go to bed. But part of our after dinner tradition suddenly has been to take a walk. Make sure. Say, come on, Mama. Come on, Mama. Right, Jack? And then we say, stop. Go. Stop. Go. So we're practicing our stops and goes. Stop. Good stopping. Go. Stop. Good stopping, Jack. Stop. Good stopping. Good job, love. Look at me. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Oswald-Jackson.
I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I was explaining that I'm a little numb. I had dental work done this morning.
I can't believe you could go in and do dental work on the morning before a show.
Yeah.
I didn't come in yesterday at all because first I had an IEP and then I had my mammogram and then I was having an ultrasound and I was like, that's enough for a day.
I would say that's
taking
plenty
the rest
for
of
a
the
day.
day off,
What-
but you do
that's
dental work and come in and do the show.
Well, that's just...
I'm just not that tough.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you think I'm tough, girlfriend.
You are tough.
I'm glad you think
tough
I'm
in
tough.
the best possible
Okay.
way tough.
All right, and there's some very interesting stuff in the news. And some of it is a reaction to the Sesame Street. There was a letter from the Guardian that you selected that was about the new Sesame Street puppet Julia, who has autism.
Well,
right?
I just want to say there has been so much overwhelmingly great press about Julia on Sesame Street, this character who happens to have autism, and I personally am thrilled about it. There was a little bit of negative press about people saying, oh, great, now you're going to normalize autism, and and everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I particularly thought this was interesting, that in The Guardian, they said, while it's wonderful that we're going to be covering this, that there is a problem that nobody's discussing, and that's that we have this broad term autism, and that when is it time, and isn't it way past time, that we start talking about it and naming it different things, that we have this name of autism that comes from, is it the 20s or the 30s?
The 1920s. Swiss psychiatrist Eugene Bleuler is the person that first coined it, autism.
And it's this block of things that could cover everything from somebody who is brilliantly, wildly talented scientist
extremely high
to
functioning.
Somebody who is going to need massive support the rest of their life.
Lifetime of care.
And so that when
Verbal
somebody
and
says,
other.
isn't it a gift to have autism, you're offending all the people who are like, this is a humongous disability that we're having to deal with.
Yeah.
And then when people say, oh, the horror of autism, that you're offending people who are like, I'm able
I have autism and look at
and
how
I'm
I
able
function.
to do things.
Yes.
And that it creates this gridlock that prevents us from getting the funding
Yes.
and the help and the support. And when are we going to language this in a different way so that it's not just autism?
A wastebasket term that can mean so many different things to so many different people.
And there's a couple of quotes that they put in. That, you know, their Guardian is not the first. You want to read the first one, and I'll read the second one. Or want me to do the first one?
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So there is an unanswerable case for the value of people with high functioning autism to society, where their particular talents enable them to make significant contributions to academic subjects such as computer science or theoretic physics. For these people also, it is possible to achieve good quality of life. These two facts argue against attempting to prevent or cure autism itself. By contrast, the additional problems of language and learning cry out for research into their prevention or alleviation. I mean, like, how do you make peace with this?
Exactly.
How do you talk to a corporation and say, fund, you know, a program that will alleviate this, when they're going, well, look, you have scientists. But that's not the kind of autism that's being discussed when we're saying alleviate it. We're talking about the kids who will never read.
Right. And another quote from Michael Barron, who was the co-founder and chairman of the National Autistic Society in the past, says the time has come for a label describing so many different conditions to be revisited. It is difference, social difficulty, disability, and diversity that should be analyzed, and not one of the behaviors, i.e. withdrawal. Yet the investment in the autism industry is so great that to put the label into the cupboard needs a revolution for which the professionals engaged are not yet ready.
I'm ready. Let's revolt.
We're ready here.
Can I just say, too, because you were so good in referencing your quote. My quote was from Professor Jill Boucher, who was the Department of Psychology, City University of London.
Okay.
But I'm ready. And CARD, we've been saying forever, we want to phenotype autism so that we can start to deal with it more effectively. And CARD in the last year has been able to phenotype 7 different distinct versions of autism. And we're just going to see more over the time. Let's give those things names and get knowledgeable about it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Revolt.
Get on the bandwagon. Yep. We all need to be on the bandwagon.
New words.
Okay, here is another story about a potential drug for autism. And this is a very interesting one because it's a repurposed drug. It's a drug used to treat excessive swelling, and it seems to ease autism features in some children on the spectrum, and this is according to results from a trial in France. But there are very big concerns about the drug's side effects. It causes excessive urination, which can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah, a kid can dehydrate really quickly, so we need to be cautious about that. But I do think what's really particularly interesting to me, that in the brain, this particular drug affects a chemical messenger, gamma-aminobutyric, GABA is how we refer to it.
Use the short.
GABA. And a lot of parents have been giving GABA supplements for a long time. It's something, when we have Lisa Ackerman on the show, she talks about it as being something that a lot of parents should look at. So, and it's a supplement. You can give GABA. So we're going to see a lot more in the month of April about drugs and things like that. This is one to keep an eye on, but before you run out to give it to your child, you got to be really concerned about dehydrating a small child.
It's commonly known as bumetanide.
It's a diuretic.
It's a diuretic.
It's a diuretic. So concern about that.
And then our friend Holly Robinson Peete was in the news about a town hall that she is putting together, that she is doing on her show. I'm taking it.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't watching For Pete's Sake on the Oprah Winfrey Network, just 2 things I love: the Oprah Winfrey Network and For Pete's Sake. We love this family.
Right.
What an amazing family.
Yeah, Activate has honored them as activists, Holly and Rodney.
And Holly has been on the show before talking about how concerning it is, first of all, to have children who are on the autism spectrum and have them interacting with the police. But, let's get real, that she has some real concerns, and I think justifiably so, about having Black young men. And one of her young men is on the autism spectrum, but that she needs to talk to all of her kids. And she said that before about, at some point, that each family that has children that, whose skin is of a particular color that they have to sit down and have the quote unquote talk. What an education for me when I first heard about that, because in my family, the talk was you sit down and talk about the birds and the bees.
Right.
And I will say this, that Holly is so thorough on her show. If you're not watching, for Pete's sake, you really need to. I'm behind. I DVR it, so I'm behind. I'm not caught up. But in the episode that I just watched the other day, they had sat down and talked to all of their boys, including RJ, about how to be respectful of a woman's right to say no, and how to not put yourself in a position where your conduct could be called into question, and how to be a gentleman.
Right.
And I think, first of all, we all need to see those conversations happening, but especially to see a family of their caliber, you know, where dad is a sports star and mom is a television and movie star, and to see them having these conversations, and the fact that one of their sons is on the autism spectrum is like raw, sis, boom. But Holly's taking it further and having a town hall about,
about police safety. And
yes.
And she said it was the Charles Kinsey case that literally paralyzed her. She said it shut her down. She couldn't leave a room for days.
And we all know this is the story of the young man who's the autism therapist that was out in the parking lot with his charge and trying to protect him.
Thanks for
he had
referencing that.
He had a toy gun in his hand, and the police shot the therapist. And on asking why they shot the therapist, and the tape that he's saying, please don't shoot. He has autism, please don't shoot. And the police officer later on said, oh, I didn't mean to shoot the therapist. I meant to shoot the child with autism.
With autism, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Make me old before my time. So thank you to Holly. Make sure you're watching For Pete's Sake. It's on the Oprah Winfrey Network. And it's luscious. It really is. Dolores, the mom, has said that she's going to come on the show. I got to reach back out to her and get her.
Let's get her on.
She's, I talked earlier about grandparents. Grandparents are a tour de force with autism.
They sure are.
Love that family.
We're going to be back with a woman who is the author. She is a contributor to the book, What Every Autistic Girl Wish Her Parents Knew. I've been reading this book. It's fascinating. Really has given me some new insight on having a girl on the spectrum as a child, as your child. And Jennifer St. Jude, I know Jennifer, she's an advocate, and she is also on the autism spectrum herself. So she has two daughters on the autism spectrum. So this is a very interesting situation. Of anybody that knows how to shed light on this, Jennifer does. So we'll be back with her.
Stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing?
Pooping.
You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
Help. No, I can't help you pee. Help. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate.
and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time. We can come play after. Hurry.
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack.
Big fish for your pee-pee.
Big pee-pee. Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
So we're going to do down dog next. So with down dog, there are several different ways that you can do it, and I want to show you first and then help you with yours so that we can work on what feels good for you, okay? All right, because there's no right way to do it. It's more about what your body likes, all right? So for me, what I'm going to do is start off with my hands at the top of my mat, my headlights. My fingers are aiming towards the top of my mat, and then I'm going to tuck my toes, and then my head is also going to drop, and I'm going to look between my toes. Okay. And my body should be, or hopefully, like an A shape.
Or V.
Or V, yes.
Upside down V.
Yep. And so if your quads are tight or your hamstrings are tight, you might need to bend your knees a little bit.
Then it's a U.
Or if your shoulders are a little strained or a little tight, remember to push in through your feet. But also sometimes what feels really good is going down on your forearms, like this. You can actually start out this way instead, it's a little easier. So your forearms rest on the floor. You still tuck your toes, and then you're still looking between your toes. But rather than being on your hands then, your weight's along your hands and your forearms. Okay? All right. So, now it's your turn. Okay. So, yep. You're going to do on your hands? Okay, yep. So your fingers are facing the front of the mat. Or are you doing forearms? Forearms? Okay, there we go. Wow, you're very bendy. Very nice. And your gaze is right here between your toes. Excellent. Very nice, Jem. Wow. Awesome. Feet are a nice distance apart. How does that feel?
Okay.
Awesome. You want to come down? Excellent.
And we are back with Let's Talk Autism. And now we have with us Jennifer St. Jude. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And Jennifer is an advocate and a contributing author to a book we're going to be talking about. She has a bachelor's degree in social work and adult teaching credential. And she is not only the mother of 2 daughters on the autism spectrum. You were diagnosed after a lifetime of difficulties yourself. And your personal journey of hope is included in a very unique book here that's called What Every Autistic Girl Wishes Her Parents Knew. So welcome, Jennifer. And tell us how you became involved in contributing to this book, What Every Autistic Girl Wishes Her Parents Knew.
It was about 3 years ago, and I was approached by a woman, Sharon Davenport. She runs Autism Women's Network, and I kind of found out after the fact that I think they received a grant to use money to help the autistic community, and used it to create this book to help girls while employing women on the spectrum to write it. So it was really amazing. I don't know how or why they chose me. I think I know that I'm on Facebook with them, and maybe I know I write a lot on different topics, so I think that they maybe saw something and asked me if I would contribute. I have 2 girls on the spectrum, so I kind of come at it from 2 different angles, my own experience, but also raising children on the spectrum, and then being involved in advocacy for a lot of people.
Right.
So when they offered to contribute, I just said yes. I wasn't even sure what I was saying yes to, but I was yes, because they've done so much for me. Autism Women's Network, I just figured nothing I could say no to for them.
Well, yeah,
So-
the Autism Women's Network, how do people learn about them? Because if they've helped you so much, we'd like other people to be
Yeah,
involved.
I know that it's autism. I think you just search Autism Women Network. It's .org, and I don't know if it's awn.org. It's probably autismwomensnetwork.org.
Okay.
And but I found them just searching desperately when my daughters were diagnosed, and I was starting to recognize myself just for girls and autism, women and autism, and I couldn't find anything except Autism Women's Network.
Okay.
And I know that you had asked me what they do there. They are just a main site for advocacy. They're in the forefront with issues with women, and they're protesting and helping in Congress, and they just do everything.
They do amazing work. We've
Yeah.
been big fans of theirs for a long time, and they have regularly shared things from our show. And one of the things that's been fascinating to me is that a couple of times we've reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to come on and promote your organization?" And the answer has always been, you know what, we like for people to find us, and we're busy doing what we do. And they're that level of fabulous that they're not about promoting for promotion's sake. And I'm always very impressed with the things that they do. But I have to say
extremely
too, I'm impressed with you, and I can see why they would be impressed with you. I've read some of the things that you've posted online, and you are one of the clearest voices I've read in looking at and explaining sometimes, people will write things online that that come solely from their perspective without being able to see other people's perspectives. And I think you have written some of the most impressive stuff about acknowledging the fact that sometimes there is an inability to see things from people's perspectives, and that we still have to welcome those people to conversation, even if they're not able to take someone else's perspective.
Yes, I think I even know which post you're talking about.
Well,
yeah, it's people can be harsh with the other side, whichever side that is,
Yeah.
and about their lack of understanding. Even the autism community can be harsh with they're not being understood. But there's a woman named Donna Williams who taught me that approaching everyone with education versus condemnation is always the best approach, and I've started to take that approach as well, because it's really the only way to change someone's opinion or to help teach them about a topic.
Before we get into, sorry, Sharon.
I'm sorry, can I just add one thing to it? For you to express it the way you have and so clearly is so amazing. But then when you find out that not only do you have a diagnosis, but you're also a parent too, it's like you get to hit it on all pistons. Nobody can take issue with it, because the parents are like, no, you totally get what that's like. But for everyone else on the spectrum who's like, well, what about our voice? You are both of those things. You're kind of amazing and articulate, the experience that you bring to it. So
thank you.
Impressive.
Tell us just before we get to your daughters and what typical issues girls face. You write about what you went through. You said you withdrew into your own private prison when you were younger, and you found a way to look normal, but you weren't really normal, but you just emulated these things. Can Can you talk about your experience just a little bit?
It's something I hear a lot from autistic women.
Mhm.
And I think it makes me think that autistic women have a much easier time faking it. And faking it is comfortable for you all, like everyone else, but it is a horrible experience. I know someone in the book even mentioned it, that the fear or the feeling that you have is that if you're faking it so well, and people love you, do they only love you for who you're pretending to be? And if they only knew who you really were inside, what would that be like? And what would they think of you? And then you kind of insert your own condemnation of what you think of yourself, and then it's really a negative experience. You can't, people will say like, but everyone likes you, but then you think, yeah, well, they just like the person I'm pretending to be. And that it's a horrible feeling because you feel like no one really knows who you truly are. And I think being diagnosed and, writing this book, coming out and slowly starting to become more of who I am and just own that has made me be able to just be more like who I am and just accept that and realize that people still like me. I'm not, it's very challenging, but it's a much better experience to just be who you are than to pretend. But it's hard not to, because society, needs you to act a certain way, and they even go to lengths where they get agencies to teach your kids how to act a certain way that's acceptable so that people will like your children. And it's a challenging world to live in.
It is a challenging world, but I think the book is so helpful to parents who've got girls. In your chapter in particular, I think you break things down in a way that makes it so accessible for us to be able to see it from a different perspective.
Yes, you actually have common qualities and issues, and then you have what our girls with autism need. So some of these are like common qualities, affectionate, what they need, belonging, helping find a place where they feel they belong to meet it, and black and white, all or nothing thinking, difficulty seeing the big picture, and then you go on to illuminate things that they actually need in these areas.
Yeah, it's I know someone had asked me how I came up with that. I think part of it is I'm on different boards. There's a autism discussion page, and he breaks everything down where he not only tells you what your problem is, he tells you how to approach it, and then gives you 1,000 examples. And it's like I found that so helpful in my own experience that I realized I have to be more like that when I explain things to people. So I thought about the things that not only I faced, but my daughters faced, and other people I know with children, and especially girls on the spectrum faced, and just I'm kind of a pattern seeker, which is like, stereotypical, but it's true. And I kind of thought about things that showed up more frequently, and then just thought about the things that I did. I mean, some of the things that I wrote were things that I did that actually worked, and some of them were things that I realized after they failed that I wished I would have done this, now that that's not an issue anymore. I just learned along the way. And I think every woman in this book who wrote their piece, the goal was to help the people before them and the children that are coming up, the girls that are coming up, so that they don't have to go through this. I mean, that was, and I really got that from all the people who wrote, what they shared.
And you're a mom, 2 girls, and they're teenagers now?
It feels like they've always been. No, they're wonderful. I mean, they really are. I mean, people shoot comments about teenagers, but they're wonderful. I have one's 11, and the other one is 13. Okay.
And so teens and tweens.
Teens and tweens.
And they're both on the spectrum?
Yeah, they're both diagnosed at different times. They're very interesting. They're very different. One is more outgoing, not really recognizing signs, a little more Asperger, classic Asperger. The other one is a little more what I would call more autism, just, where everything is overwhelming to her and she withdraws from people. So they're very different types of autism in girls that I can relate a little bit to each of them differently, but, it gave me a lot of diverse experience because I have to really approach them very differently.
Is there a main message you want to tell parents that have girls on the autism spectrum? I mean, is there an overall theme that you would like to convey to them?
I mean, mostly most of what's written is addressed to boys. Most of the research was done with boys. So a lot of times what happens is parents get told your daughter's not on the spectrum because it's all being judged on characteristics of, males. And just to trust your instincts, to know what it is and give your girl an identity, because I know that for, a lot of people talk about they don't want to label, but everyone in this book that I've read about, including myself, I felt crazy, I felt lost, I felt like an alien, I felt like I didn't fit anywhere. And to recognize myself in this and to find my people, it was life-changing. And so, you know, find your girl's people, find her people, and set up play dates and encourage that. Don't try to force her into socializing situations with neurotypical girls that she feels like an alien with, you know?
Yeah. Really, you know, some of what you talk about is how that identity and being encouraged. How specifically, you know, I was really struck in the book, one of the things that you had said was that you learned how to be an angry teenager, like the politics of being an angry teenager. And I think there's something about being a parent anyway with a teenager that you think that, oh, well, that's just going to come. But I'm guessing it doesn't have to, and having been there yourself, we've all been teenage girls, but you've been a teenage girl who was on the spectrum, didn't know you were on the spectrum, and now you've got the two teenage girls. What do you do with your girls to encourage them?
You know, that feels like a lot of questions in one.
I'm sorry,
I'm thinking, that's okay. I'm thinking of different things.
It feels like it is.
I'm thinking different things. One thing I'm thinking is I'm really, really, really happy because I feel like I've given my daughters a different experience than what I had. And my girls are not angry teens. They're moody and they have their ups and downs, but they're not angry teens. And I think the biggest thing is I treat them with respect. And if they're upset about something, I ask them why. I don't just shut them down, like, stop that. You know, I ask them why and we talk about it and I try to help them understand. Is that?
Yes,
really,
no, I think that answers more, that and more. All the questions I had.
But you write here, and this really, when we talk about advice for other parents, you say that, you know, there'll be a lot of heartache, that you're going to be going through a lot of things, a lot of battles. You're addressing parents with the fact that you said, you know, they will grow tired at times, and there'll be days when they feel like they've failed at everything. But you will believe your child will only be happy when all these things are worked out. But the truth is that she will be happy knowing she was loved enough that you're here fighting and advocating for her. It's okay to make mistakes, to fail, to do everything the opposite way from what you had planned that day. It's okay to model saying, I'm sorry, more times than you can count. But when you end your day, know that you gave your child the most important thing she needed and longed, your love and dedication. So I think that's just an incredible message.
Right?
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, it has been excruciating, and it hasn't been having children on the spectrum that's been the most difficult. It's been interacting with society, fighting the schools, fighting the doctors, fighting this, to just get basic level support and acceptance. It's been, you know, grueling, and sometimes you want to turn on, am I doing this wrong or whatever, and it's really just about do your best with love. You know, it doesn't matter what you do your best with love, and that'll come across. And one thing I want to say, because it's something that comes up a lot about people not telling their child that they're autistic or not, you know, and I actually even got kind of flack from this because my children, my youngest, knew too much about autism. And I tell them constantly, you know, yes, that's maybe your autism, and oh, you can play the piano really, really well. That's probably your autism. I tell them the good and the bad because it's reality.
Yeah.
And I want them to know what makes you different with autism and how you can work around it, how you can compensate. Because you can't cure it, but you can compensate. My life has been changed by some basic services, occupational therapy and just therapy, learning these things, you know. It's been completely transformed. I am not the person I used to be like 5-10 years ago, not at all. And it was because of that, so.
Wonderful.
So let's talk about how they can get the book.
Yes.
What every
where can
autistic
we get
girl
our
wishes
own
her parents
copies?
knew.
Actually, it's available on Amazon.com.
Okay.
That's the biggest site that I know of. I'm not sure about anywhere else. I know you can get it directly from the publisher, I'm sure, and I'm sure you can also reach out to AWN. But Amazon.com, if you just type in the title, What Every Autistic Girl Wishes Her Parents Knew, it pops up. And I encourage people to, you know, honestly, you know, I don't read. I have a really hard time with comprehension, but I felt it was my duty to read this book before I came on here.
Wow.
And so I played it. I have an iPad and I play it auditorily because it was really hard. But I read this whole book, and the people who write in this book, it is phenomenal. I mean, I shared what I shared, and I hope it's helpful, but they shared things I didn't, and together we have such a big voice for girls on the spectrum. And I really think that if you have a daughter, you have to read this and be encouraged.
Absolutely, but I'm amazed that you have issues with comprehension because you are such an amazing writer.
Yes.
You are the clarity in what you write, because sometimes it's very difficult, you know, complex things that you're writing about, but the clarity and the sense that's there, really, honestly, I read a lot of things from a lot of people, and yours is amazing.
I can't explain that. I can tell you that my comprehension is so bad that there's times I read my own work after a while and think, I'm not sure if I understand what that says anymore.
Wow.
And people tell me that I write well, and I just must think that that part of my brain works really well to the point I don't even know it. Like, because I read it and I think, I'm not even sure what that says.
Well, you're a beautiful writer, and you're very articulate, and we appreciate you coming on the show today, sharing what every autistic girl wishes her parents knew, and sharing your journey and your journey with your daughters.
Thank you. Is there time to read one thing?
Yes, you do.
Go for it.
It's actually, to me, it's really important because it's the dedication. It's from this book, and it meant the world to me that it was included in here. And it was the woman who put this together, Sharon Davenport, put together a dedication to for this book. I wish I could find it faster. I'm so sorry.
No, you're doing fine.
If you can help me.
Doing good.
Okay, dedication, and this is what I want to say. Like it says, this book is dedicated to all the autistic women of our past, our present, and those we know, and those we haven't, who have gone without recognition, support, or acceptance. And it just makes me so happy that we can be a voice for every girl and woman on the spectrum. So.
It's an important book. We want to encourage people to get it. We want to thank you for being here and for putting this in writing along with other people, because what a great tool. What a great tool. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we've got a young man who is an artist,
and his mother,
Nicholas Kontaxis,
yes,
who's got an art show this weekend, his very first art show. Wait till you see his work. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful, and we're going to talk to him and his mom. So stick with us back after these messages.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain.
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and ensures that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, you know, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope.
One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with Taka the most is hope. To me, that's what Taka means. Taka means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's going to do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're going to do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3-week of depression, and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we going to do. And then we found Taka, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction, and there was hope, and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's going to be okay, and we're going to be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without Taka.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found Taka. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon. And we couldn't be more pleased, and without Taka, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. Taka is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At Taka.
At Taka.
At Taka.
We are families with autism helping.
Helping.
Helping families.
Helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
Being part of this community is really important to a mom with a son like Jackson, because it really does take a village, and you need so much support, you know, to help bring out all of the amazing qualities and skills and talents that our children have. So I'm just very grateful to everybody who was a part of this.
I think it helps with all sorts of that self-esteem, social skills. They seem to communicate a little bit with each other, and they had a lot of friends. The helpers were phenomenal, and I think the social skills for sure, because they, you know, they worked together and they did a couple of group things across the floor, and they sang songs together, and I yeah, for sure, I think it's a really huge deal. A great program.
What programs like this show is the person is in front of what we call today a disorder. I think what we're finding is that these sorts of brain challenges that make people unique can actually be gifts in ways we haven't discovered in the rest of society to bring them out. So when you see a program like this and you see the kids dancing, having fun, and making up jokes, making up the story. I was here when they did that. That was so amazing to watch, because they were all focused, they were all present, they were all laughing, they were all getting into the creation of this story. And that to me sort of broke the barrier to say, no, first we're dealing with people, and then we're dealing with the challenges.
Logan Shepard. At first glance, he looks like a typical American teenager. He plays in a band, loves hanging out with his friends, he doesn't like doing homework, and he's not really fond of broccoli. But Logan Shepard is not your typical 14-year-old. Logan was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He was nonverbal, made no eye contact, and his parents were told to abandon all hope. Instead, his parents began an intensive intervention treatment. At its center was a quality ABA program known as the CARD method. This is Logan Shepard now.
All I really want to say is, like, I'm kind of copying Martin Luther King. I kind of have a dream, like, that one day, like, I can just, like, inspire people and never give up. Because, like, that's what I want to do in life. Because if I can succeed, they can succeed. And I will succeed.
To follow Logan's musical journey, visit www.facebook.com/officialdrummerrock or @drummerrock on Instagram. For more information on the CARD method, visit www.centerforautism.com or call 800-345-CARD. Rock on, Logan.
And we are back with Let's Talk Autism, and we are joined now with a special mother and son. Nicholas Contaxis is a modern artist from Rancho Mirage, California. He creates signature large-scale canvases. They're characterized by a riot of primary colors, and this is despite overwhelming obstacles. Welcome to the show, Chris Ann and Nikki. So good to have you both here joining us. And your son's story, Chris Ann, is one of really overwhelming perseverance and hope. Tell us about Nicholas when he was young, and when he was born, and sort of your journey, if you will.
So at 14 months, he had a seizure in my lap, and that was the start of everything. So he had numerous seizures from very young. We lived in Boston at the time, and we were at Boston Children's Hospital, and they really didn't know what it was. So it was maybe 6 or 7 years of straight doctor's appointments at that young age just to find out what was wrong and why he was seizing. And, they finally found out that it was a low-grade astrocytoma in the basal ganglia, which is a Parkinson's-like center, and also an autistic-like center. So we started to see, some autistic features, and of course the seizures really wiped out his speech. And it was always a challenge after seizures to get him up and going again and get his speech going. So he was on the spectrum, let's say. And, we don't really know if it was from the lesion, from the seizures, or why, but we dealt with the autism. And he's had a program with CARD since he was, I think, 5 years old.
Okay. And so you turned, this love of painting into a career. Tell us how it started as trying to find a trade for Nicholas?
Exactly. When, I think after all of the illness and all of the 40,000 seizures, it was very difficult after all the therapy we've done to get into school at 15, 16, 17 and say, I don't know if he could do any of the jobs they had. He couldn't do any of the jobs because some of the places had sharp edges and he'd fall. Other places, it was too difficult for him. He drooled a lot, so he couldn't work with food. Everything was not possible with him. And we just, it's been always that we didn't want to take that as an answer. And I just remember thinking that painting, I had some supplies. I just thought painting might be something, because he could have a seizure, he could fall, and he could get right back up again and keep doing it, and no one would be really there. He couldn't hurt himself because we could keep him safe. And so that's how it started. And luckily the school district was very, they said they just wanted to see that he sold some pieces and that they would let him do it during job share if he sold some pieces. And so he got a portfolio together. He actually was in regular ed art in 15, 16, 17, and 18 years old. And then after he showed that he could sell some pieces, then he got to do it in job share. So he actually is in a studio painting instead of going out on the sites.
But he also, he showed an affinity for it, didn't he, Chrisanne? And he loves it, right? This is something that...
Yeah, he always loved color, no matter what. With the seizures, when he was his sickest, he would love to look at colors always. He'd also love to pull things.
Look at that.
We're looking at some of the paintings. They're so beautiful.
We never really let him do it either because we didn't want him to, not, we try to make him more social and not doing that. But the funny thing is, when it came to now, he gets to do something that he always wanted to do, which is like be with color, pull paint, and we developed the whole technique of how he works around his disability.
And that technique is using a palette knife, right? Tell us a little bit about the technique.
Well, it involves like a lot of layers so that a lot of mistakes can be made. We don't really judge the mistakes. We just keep letting him go and go and go. Now, if you keep going and going and going, then colors could meld and they won't be as vibrant. So we use hair dryers. We hold hair dryers and have big blowers so that the colors dry quickly. So that's something around his disability.
And I understand that he, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but he actually is the person who names each one of the works of art. Is that correct?
Yeah, fun. The names are crazy.
Well, I want to know, what's the one behind you? What's the name for that?
That's Vacation.
Love it.
Yeah, and Nicholas's speech is limited, but he has a lot of mans that he says, a lot of one word, two word, and so we write them down. When he's working on a painting, we'll say, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? And whatever he says, we write it down on that painting in the back. On a piece of
Now, you've got a show. He's got his first gallery show. So tell us about those.
Well, that's really exciting. It's a beautiful gallery in Los Angeles. And my sister lives in Los Angeles, and she started to see a lot of the paintings, and she'd say, oh my gosh, I love this. And she works with a lot of designers. So that really helped a lot. My sister was a lot to do with this because she would always call and say, can he do a 36 by 36 and can you have it here in LA? And so we'd get a 36 by 36 canvas. He'd start working on it. We'd deliver it to LA. And then they'd say, we want more, we want more. And that's how it started with that. And then they said, you have to do a show, you have to do a show, you have to do a show.
Okay, so the show is this Saturday.
It's a one-night pop-up event. There'll be 80 pieces there.
Okay.
30 in the gallery, and the rest of them will be in the back that people can get that are at affordable prices.
Okay.
So we have there's a big, wide variety of things, small to all the way up to 9 feet by 6 feet, if you can believe that.
That's amazing.
What a great thing.
Those take a long time, but you know what, Nikki, he pulls every single stroke. We help him, we assist him, we get the paints out. Sometimes we even, line colors up. We even put dots on sometimes to help him to work a little quicker. But he does every pull. We don't touch the pulls. He does them.
Okay, and tell us, Chrisanne. Okay. So let's the information once again on where the show is.
It is on Melrose, right by Melrose Place. It's the Day DERE Gallery.
The Day Ray Gallery.
And
is there information that where can people go to learn more?
Well, they can. He's going to be on Good Day LA. They're going to at 7 a.m. to talk about the event.
And then your website is amazing. It's got all the information on the website, which is nicholascontaxis.com.
Well, not all of them, but a lot of them, nicholascontaxis.com. It's very fun. We're having a contest right now where 900 people have entered to help Nicholas name my sister's painting. And the names were so cute. And so Nicholas is going to pick the winning name at the show, and they're going to win
Great.
paintings.
And-
We have that going. Art by Nikki. That's his Instagram handle. That is a very fun thing to follow.
And I want to thank you for naming Act Today as a beneficiary, as one of the
Yes,
beneficiaries of this.
Yes, it is.
Yes, which is
I
wonderful.
hope you're there. We'd love to see you.
Okay, I'm planning on coming with my son Wyatt.
And we've just got a little less than a minute left, but I'm wondering, who does Nicholas decide when the painting is done, or does somebody else decide?
Well, I would say that we all decide.
Okay. All right.
So,
Nicholas,
yeah,
your work is amazing.
What do you say, Nicholas? You say thank you? Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
Oh,
Did you hear
that's great.
Wonderful.
You got a
We
great
did hear
thank
it.
you.
Thank
All right,
you.
Chris Ann and Nicholas, it's wonderful. It's such an inspiration. We're wishing you great luck with the gallery showing, and encourage everybody to come out and see this remarkable young man's art.
Remember this, everyone can find their voice. There is no impossible. And don't ever give up. And even bad illnesses can turn to beautiful things.
Yes,
there
that's
you go.
true. Thank you,
so
Roseanne.
much for that message.
Okay.
And
All right.
and good luck on Saturday. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
And thank you so much. And for our audience, we've got an amazing show tomorrow that's just chock full of amazing guests, including Romario Snow and Fiorella Snow
are they coming on?
Romario, who
Wonderful.
was lost for 27 days and found, and then was lost again last week after the LA Marathon. He will be here tomorrow. And Carrie Magro is going to be here. Carrie Magro is an
Fantastic.
amazing young author, and off to do some new things, which he's going to talk about and talk a little bit about autism awareness. And we also have a mom who has a daughter who's on the autism spectrum that needs a new cochlear implant. And so she's going to be talking about what she's doing about that and how you can help to support so that her daughter Autumn can hear.
Okay.
That's all happening tomorrow, plus some amazing stuff. We've got our mindfulness moment and autism in the
we're
classroom.
out of town. We'll have to tell you about this amazing fundraiser that
I
our
will
mom
talk
is doing
about
for
that
Act Today.
tomorrow, about the
Okay.
T-shirt for Act Today. I will promise to
Okay,
do
great.
that tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.